nice one for recommending this pub, Les. I love it. It's a really lovely pub,
I'm glad you like
isn't
it. This is, we're in the Railway near Streatham Common Station.
Yeah, shout out to our friends.
Great pub and one of my favourite local pubs.
And it's not far from where you live.
No, so less than half an hour.
The killer chart with the staircase.
Yeah.
And then the 60-40 killer stat.
Yeah.
They're sort of things that people could take and get the gist of it.
Yeah.
And get something really actionable out of it.
Yes. It's they're a blessing and a curse.
Really?
In a way. I mean, and they were sort of accidental to some extent. Well, not exactly accidental. At the time, didn't realise how much traction
be what it was going to be.
They'd get. So I could go into that in a bit more detail. I'll start with the 60-40 rule, though, actually, which is, I mean, the 60-40 rule, it just has a ring, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. It just kind of goes, oh, 60-40, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's like a jingle.
Yeah.
It's like, and which is great because people go, okay, that's it, 60-40, done.
Yeah.
And then but actually, you know, we wrote a whole book, the one Effectiveness in Context, which is really about how it's not 60-40 all the time. Sometimes it's a bit more, sometimes a bit less. You know, here's how you vary the ratio. There's a whole book which basically is, it's not 60-40, here's what it
it's
actually
all these
is.
other things, yeah.
But they, you know, none of that goes in. And I actually remember reading a tweet once, somebody saying, oh, Leslie's going to be talking about the long and the short of it. Isn't that just him going 60-40, 60-40, 60-40? And it's like, okay, you know, actually.
A confession, I think I prefer Effectiveness in Context to Long and the Short of It.
That's a great book.
It's a great book. Because you know, it depends, doesn't it? It does, right?
There's a long backstory to the zigzag chart thing. Yeah.
Go on, do tell.
Okay.
I love
I mean, this could be
chart.
the whole 2 hours. You know?
But I love a killer chart. They're so important and they get you a long way.
Yeah.
So
the story starts
of this
in 1995,
yeah.
I think. And so you said, what was my aha moment? And I think probably the thing I did that had one of the biggest effects on my understanding of all this was working on a little insurance company called Frizzell Insurance, a small insurance company that had been around since 1924.
Oh, right, okay.
It was the first direct insurer. They sold insurance by post to civil servants and people like that in the 20s. But when Direct Line was booming in the early 90s, they thought, we need to get in on this. So they decided they were going to start selling insurance over the phone. Well, they had been selling insurance over the phone. And they were going to advertise and become the next Direct Line. And we did the advertising for them. So they were very, very cautious.
Yeah.
So we helped them construct a regional test just in Meridian as a proof of concept, and ran the TV ad, and immediately I could see the spike in their call volume. So I thought, okay, this is
great.
working.
That works. Yeah.
Now a bit worried, a bit too successful. So what we do is we'll do a staggered regional rollout, so we don't overwhelm the call centre. So over the course of a year, they went from no regions to 1, 2, 3, up to 10 something.
Oh, that's quite a good test. Yeah.
Brilliant test, brilliant test. It was like perfectly constructed, and they had back data, so you had a few years of nothing. We had a spike, and then we had all these regions, and they were going on and off as well.
Yeah, okay.
And it was the first time I built. This is the econometrics bit. It's the first time I built a big model with pooled data. So we had 10.
So you could look at all the
time
regions
series,
at the same time.
one for each region.
Yeah.
And it worked beautifully. But while I was doing it, I was experimenting around with ad stocks, and what I found was you've got a lot of different ranges of ad stock decays, but also you could actually make a short-term ad stock work for TV, and you could also make a long-run ad stock work for TV, and they both stayed in the model. And so I started fiddling around for the different media, short and long-run ad stocks. Not all of them had it, and there weren't that many media in there. But that model was it worked so well. And what we did was, because they were so cautious, we updated it every month, and every month we would do a forecast for the next month's call volumes. And first month I got it right to within 0.1%.
Cool.
And then every month after that, I got it right within 1%.
That's pretty good.
It was, this was a model that really did actually forecast. That's, proper forecasting. Like in a brown envelope, I'll tell you what next month's number is. And, So I thought, okay, we've got something here.
And it had the long and
the
the short
of it. Yeah. And what we found was there's two effects. The long run was basically picking up the slow build in advertising awareness, which you could see that in the tracking data. All those measures were building up like that staircase.
Right, staircase, yeah.
And each time you went on air, you also got a surge of direct responses.
Yeah. And so that's where the staircase and spikes chart came from.
Kind of came from. But I mean, the thing, what I've less often said is like everything does both. It's just the mix of short and long is different for different media.
Yeah.
So, and there were all sorts of things came out of that, like the fact that they also did direct attribution, and that was giving them the wrong numbers because it was overestimating the effect of direct response stuff and underestimating the effect of brand activity. And I would say, TV is much more profitable than you think it is. Yeah. If you do it this way.
If you do it this way, if you get it right. Yeah.
And then, after a year or so, it got to the point where about the model said, I think it's 26% of all their business was coming from advertising. And then they got bought by Liverpool Victoria.
I was going to say what happened to them.
Yeah. And Liverpool Victoria said, right, well, we're going to fold you into our brand. So we turned off the advertising, and immediately sales slumped by 26%.
Oh, wow.
It's just kind of like...
You're like that, I did tell you.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So anyway, so I kind of went from that, I thought, okay, so there's a number of lessons here, one of which is direct attribution gives you the wrong answers. There are short and long run effects. Single ad stocks are not picking up the full effect, et cetera, et cetera. I then spent the next sort of, what was it? It was 95, so 8 years doing charts saying, look, this is how it works. But not the zigzag chart. And then when we did the book of the long and the short of it, we wanted to put a chart like that in towards when we
like a model,
just putting the book together. It was one of the last things we did, and I kept sending charts to Peter, going, "Look, this is what I'm trying to explain," and he'd go, "No, that's not quite right. No, it doesn't really work." And then I did the zigzag version.
So it quite helps to have a Peter. Like,
I've
done it with Tom Roach, actually.
Ah, yeah, okay.
So like the ramp, the ramp and bump chart. That was exactly the same thing. I was like, I've got it in my head what the econometrics results look like normally.
You know too well, don't you?
And he's like, he forced me to simplify it.
Yeah, and the other thing is when you own an idea, or when you're too close to an idea, you want to put everything you know in, and you're very, very protective of it. And you need someone to go,
that bit's
2/3 of what you just said is bollocks. That's the good bit.
Yeah, but that's the key to any killer chart, isn't it? To just take out all the stuff that isn't relevant. So the one key thing to take out of it.
I very much like the stuff you've been doing in social.
I do a bit of social.
This is the kind of social that I really like.
Real life social in pubs. Yeah.
But on like killer charts and stuff.
Well, it's an important part of kind of what we're doing in the Data Works course, and like I started the training because it is nice. It is an additional thing to the business, but more than anything else, there are certain things that the industry needs to get better at, and making genius charts. But you guys do it for your amazing IPA entries. The charts are just really clear, show one thing, and come out. You can't.
That is mostly me.
Is that mostly you?
Yeah, that is mostly me. I spent no. Let me just give it here. Give it here.
It's mostly me when I do it as well. Yeah. But I'm a bit of a, we're all like that at Magic Numbers. Kind of everybody's kind of going, oh, what cannot be on this to make it simpler? But that's what it's all about, isn't it?
I think. So here's another aha moment, and Tom Roach will not like this. I went on a course. It was called Influencing Without Authority. It was mostly meant for account management people, and it was all about how to get people to do what you want when you can't force them, and how to work with people.
Like negotiating and persuasion, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
But there was a bit in it about Myers Briggs. Now, Tom hates Myers Briggs, and calls it, so it's no better than horoscopes.
It is a bit pseudoscience.
And I think that might be true, I don't know.
Yeah.
But somehow it just sort of, I kind of go, it sort of feels right in some way. Like,
yeah, I quite like my one when it came back.
Okay, what are you?
I am an INTJ. Are you as well? Nice.
Yeah.
So architect.
Yeah. Okay. Now that is really interesting. Is that what they call it? That
The architect.
Architect.
And I looked up recently who are the famous ones, and you could go Zook.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Or Elon Musk, who's a bit yucky, but he's an INTJ. Or Gandalf out of Lord of the Rings.
Gandalf's not a real person, you do know that.
Well, I mean, to me,
okay, so we're very similar. Isn't this interesting? We didn't know this.
There's a clue there somewhere, isn't it?
And I remember having a discussion with our finance director a few years ago, not the current one, but the previous one, and said, saying, you're quite unusual for a finance director. You have sort of a different set of skills. Have you ever done Myers Briggs schools? And he said, yes, I have. I said, are you ENTJ? And he went, yes.
On the nose. Yeah.
Like a more sociable, clubbable version of us.
I've been having some really interesting chats with CFOs recently for this project I'm doing, and ostensibly it's trying to find out how they think about advertising budgets, and so how you can present your case well to them. But I've just been having this kind of almost love affair with these CFOs, because they're like the super practical kind of day-to-day, keeping things in guardrails and offering people ratios, and I've realised that in a sliding doors world I could have been a CFO quite happily.
Yeah.
Not a CMO, a CFO.
No, it's interesting, isn't it? I've not met them very much, and I would have thought.
Do you not get wheeled out to get, did you not get brought into pitches to kind of get it past the buying committee?
Yeah, but you don't always get to meet those people.
You don't get to meet those guys.
In fact, funny enough, I had a conversation. The last thing I did before I shut my laptop and came here was about, can I get in front of the CFO, because this is the person we need to talk to, because it's about the budget.
Yeah.
And in fact, actually, so this links to the killer chart thing.
Yeah.
So this particular company, they've got econometrics. The econometrics tells them that the advertising's working, it's highly profitable,
right? And
they're cutting the budget, and it's like, why? But one problem is that the econometricians, and I think the media agency that are working with them, their spreadsheets, I know my way around the spreadsheet a bit, and I look at it and my eyes glaze over and I go,
it's a bit too dense,
So I said, you want a really simple spreadsheet, with it's got 4 lines on, this is how much you spend, this is how much you get back, this is what your total sales will be, this is what your total profit will be, 2 graphs,
What's it going to do for the P&L?
Yeah, and then you can just tinker with, you can take that to the CFO and say, okay, now you put the numbers in, see what happens, and you sort of go, oh, my sales are going down. Yes, that's the point. Give us more money. Yeah. So that's.
So would that be your tip, to really simplify it? To get
I think there's a couple of tips there. One is you have to get in front of the CFO, which is hard, and you've got to talk their language.
I talk to them quite a lot, actually.
Yeah,
they sometimes get the senior econometrician in.
Yeah, maybe agencies don't get enough of that.
Yeah,
so.
maybe.
And you've got to make it really simple for people, so they can just sort of, not saying CFOs are stupid, but these people, they're working at a very, very high level, and they don't want to know, every single line on the spreadsheet.
There's a thing that, when you learn stuff at uni, you always have to show your workings, don't you?
Yeah.
And I know, I've been a lecturer at uni, so I know why they do that. It's so that you can check that this student's understood it. But actually, it's not really very good training for the
real world.
For the real world, because no one wants to see your working. So,
I haven't really thought about this, because I think a bit of me still feels I have to show my workings, at least in the long version of the debrief. So when were you a lecturer then?
After I finished my PhD, I was a lecturer at SOAS for a while.
Okay. Were you in the economics department?
Yeah, and I was teaching people kind of econometrics, and then also I taught people who didn't have A-levels enough to get them up to the maths and maths level. And it's actually really interesting moment as well. Like, you talk about learning experiences, and you can learn a lot from teaching.
I agree.
You learn a hell of a lot because you get it straight in your own head in order to kind of explain it.
You really know whether or not you understand it if you can.
Yeah, exactly. And there's just certain things about the way people learn, particularly when it comes to numbers and whatnot, that you kind of don't always have in your mind when you're explaining something numbers related to a CFO or to somebody. And actually those skills of getting your data explained in the right way and stuff is so important.
And of course this is one of the problems, that people do learn and process information in different ways, and there are different. You have to adapt your way of talking to people to the way they think and learn. So killer charts are great for some people, but not everyone.
Not everybody is a visual learner in that way, are they?
I am, but I remember one of the planners, we were working on an IPA paper, and we had one of those, like killer charts. You go, oh, well, you can see that it worked. And he was just going, I'm sorry, I can't see it. And it was like some sort of like colour blindness. It was just like, no.
What do you mean you can't see it?
Can't see it, look, it's there, it's in the chart,
Some people prefer a table to a graph.
There is that.
That's a bit weird.
I mean, sometimes, but mostly,
Or just need it explained and written in the words, and that as well. So, for example, we have both come across the same we've done this a few times where we've come across the same finding in different data.
Yeah, so which is always very encouraging.
It's lovely when that happens, isn't it? So I found 60-40 in the ARC database, and it's like, yep, that works. It's not just awards winners. That was a massive aha moment for me, because I'd been a bit sceptical before.
You should be. I mean, it's sort of. I'm sceptical of my own stuff in a way, I mean, I kind of go.
It's always an estimate, isn't it?
I do have moments where I think, is this all bollocks? Have I just made a career out of nonsense?
Well, it turns out no, because I verified it in the ARC data.
But well, that was the brilliant thing about that Frizzell case was, econometric models are all very well, and you can test them and all that sort of thing. But when you can actually forecast the future, better than anyone else, every time.
Same thing in different data. That sort of stuff makes you go, that's. And the other one, which we talked about quite recently, is that thing about at the different life stage of the company, the right mix of kind of brand and activation or brand and performance changes, doesn't it? And I've seen it over and over again that, if you're young, you might as well just do performance mainly.
Good. I'm glad you. Again, that's another one of those findings where I thought, is this true? Is this really robust?
Because is there an effectiveness in context as well, isn't it?
But it feels right.
Yeah.
I mean,
ROI-wise, it's
another little aha moment is we both now had experience of running businesses, and actually making money for ourselves and all that sort of thing. And no, I'm not going to be going straight in when I launch a company to doing 30-second ads in the middle of Coronation Street. I'll sort out my SEO first. Whatever.
Right. Yeah. It's just something quite practical about it, isn't it? It's like get the basics sorted. But I'm really interested in that moment when you realise that actually the thing that when does the small business that should be doing performance mainly turn into the middle-sized business that needs to change, and what's the process of that change?
I don't know the answer precisely, but it is an interesting question, isn't it? It's a very pertinent one, because that's the point where. Because obviously I always come from things from the point of view of an advertising agency, because I'm biased, not a disinterested observer, but that's the point at which they might say, oh, now it's time to hire an agency. I mean, I think part of it is to do with diminishing returns, that as you grow, you need to ramp up your spend in line with or ahead of your size in order to keep growing, which is it's the advertising to sales ratio approach, which very pleased to see that you've brought that back again, because that's not a thing people have talked about much for a long time. And that fits also on the other way, I think, is the share of market, share of voice. And those, which are the two, they're the same thing in different forms.
Yeah.
So, if every firm has a similar optimum advertising to sales ratio, then they'll set their share of voice equal to their market share. Mathematically, it's an identity. Where was I going with that? Can't remember. So as you grow, you ramp up your spend, and then you get diminishing returns and the media that you start with, the direct response type media, activation media, are the ones which saturate most quickly because the number of people in market at any given time is small.
Yeah.
So after a while,
you've reached them all.
You're just spamming people
who have already seen it. And,
So then you've got to do the more difficult job of bringing in the people who are not actively looking for you, or getting to people.
It is a more difficult job, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a more difficult job.
You might, I think that's part of it as well. Is that while you can still get growth without having to do the hard job of doing a beautiful, creative, having, genius ideas and of the type that Adam and Eve are brilliant at. You might as well do the easy job while you can, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then actually at some point it's kind of, there's this harder job, but it is worth doing. I think that's something that particularly businesses that have grown up online really struggle with.
Yeah, and this again brings us back to measurement and direct attribution and so forth, which is that in that early stage, if you're only doing direct stuff, then direct attribution probably is quite accurate. Actually, now I come to think of it, I've not really thought about that before.
Well, I think it's all right because if you're quite small, there's probably not that much else going on
that
could muddle it up.
Imagine if the only thing you're doing is Google search, and it's the only thing you've ever done. Then the attribution numbers are probably pretty much all right.
Yeah.
Or
not the worst thing in the world.
Not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
But once you want to move to doing brand advertising and reaching people who are not in market, that's no longer a reliable guide. And you've got to then have a cultural shift in how you think about measurement and also in how you think about planning, because it's not all about, turn it on today. Cheryl, the lovely Cheryl Calverley.
I love her.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
She's so smart.
She's so smart.
Yeah.
And
she's gone out of our industry a little bit though.
Yeah.
Which I'm sad about.
Yeah.
I want her to come back.
Yeah.
Anyway, Cheryl, come back.
Come back! But have you heard her talk or talk to her about Eve Sleep?
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so, very smart marketer who understands the whole thing and then went as CEO of a company that's selling direct to consumer. And, she talks about, turning off various things, going, well, that's not really very good. And then, they said, well, what have you done? The sales have tanked, so I think that there's a measurement challenge, a philosophical challenge of going, it's not about just selling today, it's about selling tomorrow. I just remember another memory. This is like old man talks about advertising, but
I'm here for it all day.
Allied Carpets. We had the Allied Carpets as a client, and I did a piece of work looking at performance this year versus last year and where the business was going, and the client got genuinely very angry, like pounding the table angry, because he's going, I haven't got time to look at why the business is down, what's happening to the business over the last 6 months. I want to know why I haven't sold any beds in Chester this morning. It's like wood for the trees, because this is in the early days of having like EPOS data where he would get twice daily store level, category level data on what he was selling, and he was totally dazzled by it.
But it's an example of something that I've seen more and more over time, over my career. It's just people responding to data as their way of going through life.
Yes.
It's like I've seen this bit of data and I'm going to deal with it, and then there's another bit of data and I'm going to deal with that. And it's a bit like playing whack-a-mole because you solve this bit here, and then this bit over here pops up with another problem.
Yeah.
But I just think what you really need to do is have a strategy.
Yes.
And then use the data to check whether you're on it
I
and
noticed you
tweak
said
it a little bit.
in life, like not just marketing, because I think you could argue that smartphones and such have for some of us made life like that. You know, it's sort of like you're reacting to what you've just seen on Twitter, and you're reacting to a text and an email and blah 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 blah. And it's a bigger problem than just business, arguably.
Yeah, I hadn't really thought of that.
But
I saw it with one client recently where we saw them pre-COVID and then did another project for them recently, and it's been a change of owner and a change of CMO, and they had such a cool strategy and a strong brand back then, and like now they're on whack-a-mole, and you can see the effect of their advertising and their sales as a proportion down.
Yeah, I could go off in a number of directions from here, but one of them, I mean, when I first started working in the business, when I was a lad, it was kind of like...
I've started doing that
data didn't arrive on spreadsheets. The Nielsen arrived in ring binders, and it was bi-monthly.
In my earliest days, I did take data off of those dot matrix printer things with the holes.
Well, I remember going. It was CPC, which is the company that eventually was bought by Unilever, but going and looking at their old Nielsen reports on microfiche, these little readers, Anyway,
but there's a point to this, isn't it? That econometrics has been around for that long.
Yeah.
And actually, we were talking about the problems with direct attribution, and probably the solution to that is econometrics, right? Do that instead, we would say.
Yeah, we would say that.
Yeah. There is just this history of kind of, learning through doing econometrics and getting the techniques working really, really well, I would say.
Yes.
Did you have neon socks of 2 different colours in the 80s back then?
Me? No, God no.
That must have just been me. I was probably about 6. That's my memories of the 80s.
No, I'm the complete reverse. I think I'm generally only have black socks, and they're all interchangeable. I'm wearing them now. It's like.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do you want to have a drink, Liz?
Okay.
Shall we?
Well, the half, top up.
Joy.
Hello.
Because you live around here, don't you?
I do, yeah. Cheers.
Lovely to see you.
Lovely to see you too. It's my local pub, so perfect.
Is this the one you go to most?
Yeah, it is, just around the corner.
I'm surprised I haven't seen you in
I know,
actually.
yeah.
That'll be it now. You'll be bumping into each other in the railway.
Yeah, we will. I've got a question for you on that then, given you said you kind of started for 3 days and you're here. Someone said to me recently that they felt like B2C marketing was kind of solved effectively. So you kind of have a bit of Binet and Field, and you have a bit of Erring with Bass, and you solve the 3 Ps, and you tailor your marketing and your messaging, and then it's done. Yeah. And I wondered if you would agree with that now that you've seen that kind of evolve.
It's not solved. I mean, there's still lots more questions to answer. I mean, it will never be solved, first of all, because there's a lot more complexity. I mean, I have lots of ideas of things that, if I had time and data, stuff I could study on how memories build and decay and all that sort of thing. But the other thing is, even if you knew all the kind of, equations, it's still a creative discipline. Yeah. So that's where economics alone does not allow you teach you how to run a business. Because at the end of the day, there's got to be a creativity.
Leap sometimes, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like our client Yorkshire Tea, and you must have seen that campaign. Everything done proper, where they get someone that's massively overqualified. They get Michael Parkinson to interview people for jobs, and they, Sean Bean for the induction speech, and massively overqualified famous people to work in their little HQ in Yorkshire. Who came up with that genius idea? Like, you can't write the recipe for that, can you? No. And do you think that's why the outcomes are so different over time?
Yeah.
Because of the creativity or lack of?
There's a number of things in there. So something that I've been thinking about in recent, the 3-body problem. But the other thing is, marketing can't be deterministic, because marketing theory affects marketing and people and stuff like that. So, like if we do John Lewis ads that make people cry, and we've got a formula for it. That formula will stop working after a while because other people will copy it, or people will get bored of it and stuff like that. So, nothing will work forever. It's inherently unstable in that way.
Do you know if it was completely solvable, we'd all have got bored and got different jobs.
And we wouldn't have a job. Yeah. So here's the unsolvable problem. We will solve them for you.
Yeah. Okay. So you can't completely solve marketing, but what if you could take one thing out of the industry or out of marketing practices, put in marketing room 101? What would it be?
Don't know.
You got one, Joy?
That's a good question.
I'll go because I've got one. I would take brand paid search. Paying to bid on your own brand name.
Oh yeah, okay.
I would put that in the bin because it's a total waste. It's just paying for people who are already on their way to you.
Yes, but what if other people buy your brand?
Yeah, I'd ban that as well.
Yeah, you ban it. Yeah, okay.
I'm putting something in room 101.
Yeah,
so
okay,
I've got a magic wand.
Yeah.
I'd put competitors
because I mean that is. So maybe the answer there would be that search term. You own it.
You should own it.
You
as part
own
of your
it.
trademark.
You're the only person that can.
That can be there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that there are some sort of prisoner's dilemma type things there, and it's like, I sometimes think, like
if you don't and your competitor does, then you're
in trouble. Price promotions. I think price promotions sometimes, if you do them unilaterally, can be deeply unprofitable. But if everyone else is doing them, you may actually be in a situation where you have to.
Yeah.
Okay, my marketing 101 would probably be, and this is very broad, jargon. So it goes back to that whole thing of, like expressing things clearly.
Yeah.
When people sort of go, we need to do some PPC because the ROIs, the LTV on the ROIs, blah, 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 blah,
You've lost me.
Well, often you haven't lost me, but you just irritated me. So I do that thing in meetings where somebody talks like that, and I'll say, get them to explain each one, which is a very annoying habit. And then eventually I'll say, I really hate TLAs. What are TLAs? 3-letter acronyms.
Yeah, the jargon gets worse every time. And the thing that annoys me the most about it is that it can mean different things to different people. Like above the line and below the line, it just doesn't mean anything anymore. And there's a few others like that where they mean different things to different people. And
I questioned somebody on an acronym recently.
Yeah.
I said, what does that one stand for? And he was like, I don't know. Why are you using it?
Yeah.
Or grouping digital into one group. Whereas before, maybe when that was one category of channels, it was fine. But now there's so many different things and formats and messages that go into that, you just can't do it.
Yeah, put that in room 101. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, I know, I kind of agree, but there are, we need some other terms, I think. Yeah.
Let's put last click attribution into room 101.
Oh, yes, please.
I was very tempted when you asked the question to say that, but I think it probably still has a role to play, as long as you interpret it in the right way. So if you've got two pieces of, direct response type stuff, and you're doing a controlled A/B test, then that's probably a pretty good way of just working out which one you want to go with.
And you're not postmodernist enough to say we need to, all data is good data. We don't want to have less data in the world.
I would put postmodernism in room 101 in general. I am a creature of the Enlightenment and see postmodernism as a threat.
Yeah, I have data, please. Yeah. Absolutely. There you go. Well, we've sorted out what to put in room 101, even if we haven't solved marketing for good. But yeah, someone was saying to me, B2C is harder than B2C. B2C is just easy now. And you can just follow the rule book. I actually saw it with one of our clients who had gone off to walk. They'd seen their sales growth slow down and said, got walk advisory to come in and tell them what should we do. And walk advisory said, like, you need a bit of Aaron Pogbash, you need a bit of Byron Sharp, you need a bit of Binet and Field, you need like these different things. And by the way, try and reach as many people for as cheap as possible. And these guys did that, and they've just seen growth as a result of it.
Yeah.
So, you know, there is something there. And
the great Paul Feldwig, I don't know how much you know him.
I know him.
Yeah. So he was, back when Louise was my boss, Paul was our boss. So head of planning at BNP as it was then. And he was trained by Stanley Pollitt, the inventor of planning. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we talked about earlier about rock family trees. I descend from both Ehrenberg and Pollitt. That's fine.
Nice.
But anyway,
Cha-ching.
Paul said, you know, the guilty secret is that advertising is not nearly as complicated as we like to think it is. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a whole mystique about it being very complicated, but really a lot of the basic principles are very simple. Yeah. But that doesn't mean it's easy. Coming up with, you know, a brilliant campaign like Yorkshire Tea or whatever, you know. And there's a whole, you know, intellectual dance that goes around it, you know, with, you know, if you want, with semiotics and archetype theory and all that bollocks. You know, archetypes, that's another one. We have a WhatsApp group in the agency for the planners, and somebody said, "Oh, you've got a good reference on the theory of archetypes," and I sent them one on astrology. You know, it's like, you know, why don't you use this instead? But the basic intellectual underpinnings are not that complicated, but doing it well, it's like that's a bit like saying, well, the point about painting is you get a brush and some paint and you make a nice daub. You know, that's not difficult.
No, you've got to have the talent.
Yeah, a bit of bravery as well, I think. Some of the campaigns that have been the best are a bit out there. We have to be a bit brave to go for it, and they pay off. So.
And then sometimes the bravery is to not tinker with it if it's working. That's the other thing. You know, just go, we'll do another one, or even just run the same ad again. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, so I think we're coming almost to the end of our chat in the pub, but I think we should all finish by telling a dad joke. I've got a really good one. It's got numbers in it.
Go on then.
So, why was 6 afraid of 7?
Don't know.
Because 7, 8, 9.
Oh.
Classic.
Oh, God. That is terrible.
Okay.
Do your kids love that?
Yeah, that's like all the time. Kids.
Okay, this is the first joke I ever taught Alice when she was very little, and it's appropriate given where we are. Man walks into a bar. That's gotta hurt. It's an old Tommy Cooper joke. Her version of it was, man walks into a bar. Oof.
Classic.
What's some of these?
Dead one of these.
Don't know.
Don't know.
I don't know, but here comes one.
I think my mum might have done that one when I was little.
That's a classic. Yeah. Okay. I think, Joy, you won it.
Oh,
yeah,
you
you win dad
There you
jokes.
go. Yeah.
There you go. If you had to pick one, which would you choose?
Can or F words?
Can or F works?
I think I would have generally said F works, to be honest, because it's more interesting. I've got a love-hate relationship with Cam. I enjoyed it this year mainly because I met you two there.
Yeah, we hung out, didn't we? We hung out.
It was nice this year.
It was nice this year, yeah. I think I'd pick F-Works every time.
Would you?
Yeah. Just because it's more our tribe, isn't it?
It's our tribe.
A little bit nerdier.
You can go home in the evening.
I'm going to go different. I have my first Cannes this year, so I'm going to go one for Cannes. It was very exciting as the first time to go and see it as a spectacle and go to all the talks and see all the work and also just the parties and kind of how the whole thing works is fascinating. So, super cool.
And what about when you get to a new place? Because, you know, we went to that pool party, didn't we, in Cannes? And
But let's, for our viewers, let's be clear. When we say pool party, we were not...
Oh no, we weren't frolicking in bikinis.
We were not all in our Speedos and bikinis.
It was very respectable.
It was a party in a villa that had a pool nearby.
Yes, run by walk and full of kind of...
So let's call it the walk party.
The walk party. We went to the walk party.
Are we done?
I think that's a wrap.
Oh, okay.
What do you reckon? Not that we have to leave, so cheers.
Cheers. Very nice way to spend the afternoon.